First of all, I'll start by thanking, as always, man, thanking you guys for the job you do covering us. I know we had the cookout the other day, and we had a chance to, again, express just how important you guys are. And, you know, when you look at the week leading up to camp, one of the things I try to do is I try to meet with everybody in our program. We had an all-staff meeting where Jose, our cleaning guy, to Chef Michael, the guy that cooks for our guys, we met. And what I told them is that, number one, I want to thank them for the job they've done in helping us build the foundation that we've built for Maryland football. But the second thing is to challenge them that to take this next step that we always talk about will be the hardest step to take. And everybody has to do a little bit more, and everything you do matters. Whether it's the cleaning guy and how they prepare our building for recruits when they come in, whether it's Chef Michael and finding ways to get our kids to want to eat the right way and do things. So everything matters, and that includes our fans. And our fans have been a major part of this build. And I can tell you that, you know, when I met with the whole team and now I'm talking to our fans, what you do matters. It matters for us as we take this next step, and we all have a role to play. Secondly, you know, I want to wish Francis Tiafa. I heard he called me out at his press conference, so I'm gonna call him out. Let's go win it, Francis. And if you can get a good time, I may try to sneak out there, but we got some work to do here. It's the start of year 6 for me here as the head coach, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished on the field the last 3 years. 3 straight bowl wins. I'm even more proud, though, that this thing has been built as a player-driven culture. The players in the locker room, those guys have led the charge, and they've done it the right way. I think our players understand that everything we get around here that you either got to earn or take, and they've embraced that. You heard me talk at the Big Ten Media Day, and one of the things I talked about were 3 pillars in how we've been able to do it. We've done it by expanding the room, having new voices, different ways of doing things, seeing things, whether it's bringing in coaches that have been head coaches, whether it's adding new teams to the league, whether it's how we're set up here at this university. Anytime you expand the room, you give yourself an opportunity to learn new ways to do things, and here at Maryland, that's what we do. The next thing is being a service to the community. I talked about the 700 hours of community service our players have done, and that's really important to me. I know it's important to my bosses, Damon and Colleen, who I work with on a daily basis, that if we're going to challenge and ask our fans to come support us game in and game out, win, lose, or draw, then we've got to also invest back into the community. I can tell you that each and every player that's been a part of our program understands giving back. And then last but not least is the development of a player-driven culture where, you know, as I told our team the other day, I mean, we work for them. You know, somehow I think sometimes we get it backwards that they come to work for me, but actually if they ever walked in Damon's office and said, we're not playing for Locks, we ain't gonna show up, he's gonna have a decision to make. And it's hard to say we're not gonna play the game. So we all work for these guys, and I can tell you that each and every one of those guys understands what we're trying to get accomplished this year and taking the next step. As I said in India, I want us to dream big. You guys can make fun of me, you can talk trash if things don't go well, but I can tell you I've built my career and we've built this team in understanding that, you know what, setbacks, failures, adversity is part of the deal. That shouldn't limit you how you dream, and the desire for me is to win a national championship, and it starts by competing for Big Ten championships, and we have the resources here to do it. We have the players here to do it. We just need to create the environment and the culture outside of just Jones Hill House where everybody has that dream and understands that it's not going to happen just because we talk about it. It's going to happen because of the work we do. And you know what? When we fail along the way, we learn the lesson from that failure and we bounce back and we show the resilience that we do. So I want my players to dream big. I want them to think about championships. That's where we are now. I couldn't say that 5 years ago, but I can tell you now I'm really excited. You know, our mindset in 2024 is to shake up status quo. I've heard Damon say it over and over to our staff. What an opportunity it is for us. I mean, some people look at it, we finished 5th the last 2 years. We're bringing in 4 new teams that are well-resourced. Some of them are blue blood programs. But you know what? We're here to break up status quo, and that's what the University of Maryland has done. If you look at the history of this university, we've always been trailblazers. We've always figured it out, and we'll continue to do that. We'll be a little bit different team than we've been around here. We lost to Leah Tungavailoa, and I've talked about the impact he has had in our program. I can also tell you that the impact he's left is how you prepare to win. In the quarterback room, it's a challenge as we try to figure out who the quarterback will be that leads us out against UConn. But what Leah and what he's done for his legacy of not just being the all-time leading passer in the Big Ten, and when you think of that, let that sink in a little bit. The all-time leading passer in the history of Big Ten. And that's hard to do. I mean, this league's been around a long time. We've had some great quarterbacks come through it. But what he also was able to do is leave a legacy on what the preparation and what the standard is for the room, and we'll be forever grateful. I'm putting my defensive hat on. You know, I spent the first 8-9 years of my career as a defensive assistant, and this year will be a defensive-led team. We've got 7 returning starters. You all know the job that Brian Williams has done with the defensive staff and the cohesion there, and Lance Thompson and James Thomas and Zach Spavital and all those guys, our coaches are. All those guys have really done a great job of aligning themselves so that our defense is aligned the right way. And we got leaders on defense. We returned 7 starters, and then obviously, like I said, the opportunity with defense, we played a bunch of players over the last 2-3 years that maybe have failed in some critical situations where they didn't make the plays. Well, these guys now have that tool in the toolbox so that when we face that this year, I think you'll see a different result. You know, on offense, I've moved back into the quarterback room. Really important decision, but it also gives me a chance to have a front seat view on what these guys know. You know, for the last 4 years, when Leah was here, we met every night at 10 o'clock. Anytime we had football, during the spring or during the fall, 10 o'clock at night until the work was done. And now I'll have a chance to be in that room on an everyday basis and see the development while also working with Josh to figure out which guy gives us the best chance to win. Developing the playmakers in our system, as we've lost a lot of guys that have made some plays. I think we've got some of the best skill in the Big Ten. When you look at our receivers, not a lot of the household names that people have come to know when we have 1 or 2 marquee guys. But I think by the end of this season, you'll see why there's so much excitement about our football program, because there'll be some really talented players. And on the offensive side, guys like Caden Prather and Ty Felton, Shalik Punch Knotts, who you guys haven't heard a lot about, but I can tell you, probably one of the more talented guys. Kobe McDonald has had a couple of big seasons here for us, along with obviously Roman Hemby. A guy I'm excited about, Nolan Ray, a really young player that has shown us he has the propensity to hit the big one. And then our tight end room with Preston Howard and Dylan Wade gives us some flexibility because of the skill set they bring. The O-line is one of the areas where we've really used the portal to plug and play. And I think as you guys have watched some of the guys that we've brought in from the portal the last couple of years, some of them coming up from smaller programs and all developed and make it to NFL camps, and we've lost 4 linemen to the draft the last few years. That's been an area where we've brought in some guys that help us grow. I mean, we signed 10 high school linemen, and when you see these guys, the length, the size, when we come out of the tunnel, we look like a Big Ten team, but it takes about 3 years for high school linemen to develop. And what I've tried to do is expedite their growth by how I've hired the staff. With Coach Rovo coming in, gives us 2 full-time coaches. All right, the rule passed where the analysts can coach. Now you throw Brian Ferentz into the mix in developing some of the younger players in on our offensive line. And so we've really invested in that group with how we've added the resources with our coaching staff, but also we've done a great job of the evaluation process, and I really feel good about how we do that. And then we got the quarterback situation. I can't say enough about how hard all those guys have worked this summer. We'll let the battle play out throughout camp. I can tell you the guy that will play for us will be the guy that gives us the best chance to win. It's not a popularity deal. If it takes 2, it takes 2. If we've got 1, we'll figure it out. But I feel good about the guys in the room and how they've prepared to compete. The one thing I'll finish with, and I'll open up with questions, is that, you know, I'm really proud about being from here. I think it shows whenever I have an opportunity to talk about what this place means to me. And I can tell you that everything that we do each and every day is working towards figuring out how to win a Big Ten championship. I mean, how great would it be for the University of Maryland to be able to do that and to break up status quo? And I can tell you that with the talent we have in the DMV area, with us becoming a national conference, a national brand from coast to coast, it opens up the doors for us to just share how great an area of the country this is. And we're excited to start this thing up today. It's like Christmas in August, and excited to get going. So with that, I'll open it up to whatever questions you guys may have.
You guys could raise your hands, we'll get you a microphone. We have some new faces in here today, so if you guys can say your name and outlet, we'd appreciate it. We'll start with Gene here on your left.
Hey, Mike, Gene Wong, Washington Post. What adjustments are there from previous years, if any, going into a fall camp where the starting quarterback is to be determined, particularly coming off years of stability at the position?
You know, having been through it, I mean, that's the one great thing about the experiences I've had over the last 15 years. You know, we've had quarterback battles at Bama when I was there. We've had quarterback battles when I was here as an offensive coordinator. We've got a system in place for how we figure it out. A lot of metrics go into it, but the biggest one that I can tell you I lean on heavily is what we call our drive chart, where I chart live drives with every quarterback, whether we do a 2-minute period or a live team period, and I basically chart how the drive ends. And as I've said before here, every drive should end in a kick if you're a good quarterback. Meaning we should either be punting the ball, we should be kicking extra points, or we should be kicking field goals. If we're ending drives, turnovers, or ending drives, you know, with penalties or things like that, then that's not playing winning football. And so I can tell you, the guy that does the best of putting the team in position to score points and finish drives the right way will end up being the guy.
You mentioned the measurables, but how much do intangibles, maybe experience, factor into, and familiarity with the offense factor into the decision too?
I mean, that helps them show that they can sustain drives. That the drive chart will reflect their experiences. I mean, I've seen a true freshman come in and play in this offensive system. Jalen Hurts was a true freshman right off the old school bus. So the experiences obviously help. Anytime you have the opportunity to fail as a player, as a coach, if you take the lesson from it. And so when I always talk about toolboxes for quarterbacks, it's having been in some third and medium situations and games and maybe not made the right decision, and then taking, what did I see or what did I do? And I can tell you that they've been trained this summer, over the last year that I've been back in that room, with mitigating risk and managing bad plays, because that's what the good ones do. They manage bad plays, they win situations.
All right, Dave.
Morning, Mike.
Dave, what's up?
Not
Suited and booted.
That's right. Buying a horse like no. Expanding on the quarterback situation between MJ, Billy, Cameron, what makes
Any freshman included?
exactly? Well,
I was asking, are any freshmen included in
Yeah,
that?
you never know. Tomorrow never knows. What, if you could expand on the returners, what makes each of them special? What gives them a case for the starting job? And when do you want to have QB1 in your mind, in your heart?
Yeah, I mean, each of theirs, we recruit to a skill set. And so each of the quarterbacks that we've tried to bring in here, number one, the first thing they've got to be able to do is throw the football. Right? You have to be able. I can't have just a running quarterback or Caden Prather, Ty Felton, those guys. They'll go, receivers. Right? They're divas. And so I got to make sure I have a guy that can throw it first, and then have the athleticism to extend plays. Everybody in that room has those two intangible skills. The ability to throw the ball. I know for some of you guys, because of how we use Billy, you're like, oh, Billy's a runner. But we've used them in running situations because we wanted to take carries off a lead. But I can tell you that Billy throws the ball as well as anybody in the room. With Cam Edge, Cam is one of those guys with a big arm, can make every throw. When you can throw the comeback to the field, all right, in college ball, that expands the defense. That creates bigger lanes. He has that ability. He also has the mentality. All right, MJ is kind of a mixture of both of those guys. He throws it well. He's athletic. He can make the plays. He's got game experience. You think back to guys like, Billy and MJ have game experience. I mean, Billy came into the game against Indiana 2 years ago. We were down. Leah got hurt. We were down. Critical third down play. He finds a way to get it executed. Made some plays for us, and the next week beat a really tough, scrappy Northwestern team to put us and get us bowl eligible. Those experiences help because he can lean on those. MJ has won and played in big games at NC State. All right, Cam played in the Auburn game and did some really good things. Expedited his development by graduating high school early. And then I'll tell you, we got some freshmen in that room, whether it's Champ Long, Christian Martin, Roman Jensen from over Murray. We got some young guys that have the ability we're gonna give everybody a chance to win the job. I want the best guy. know, I'm not just taking the guy that I feel safest with, because you know what? You want to get over the age, you can't just keep doing the same things. You got to be willing to take some chances. So excited about the room and excited that this competition. When do I plan on making a decision? You guys will find out when we run out. You know, the first play of the game. Now, the quarterbacks will know sometime, you know, if I were to go back to grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe, it usually happens about 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 25th. You meet with all of them together. You tell them all the information together at one time. You talk about keeping it in-house for the week so we don't give UConn any added advantage as to who our starters are, who our starter will be or players will be. And then you guys will figure it out when we run out with the first drive. Unless we got snitches in our facility, which we managed to get rid of some of those leakage. We gotten rid of some of that.
The fifth row on your right, Gary.
Hey, Mike, can you talk a little bit about building the offensive line and what that process is gonna be like for you?
Yeah, but it's a lot like what we've done with this defensive line. I mean, I don't know if you guys, when you look at the D-line and the Jordan Phillips of the world, the Tommy Aking Basotes, the Tajay Johnsons, and a year ago, the Dylan Fonteses, Lavon Johnson, you'll see D.O. down in the mix, Daniel Owens. It takes 2 to 3 years in the Big Ten to develop that's where the grown men play. Because it's like being in a car accident every single play when you're up front. And, you know, I call it grown man strength. You know, you play around with your son every now and then, they get a little muscles on, they think they're ready to, you know, compete and battle dad, and then that grown man strength puts hands on them, and it's like, whoa. Well, it takes about 3 years to develop the grown man strength, but what we try to do, as I say here at Maryland, I gotta figure out how to do it quicker. I gotta figure out, so what do? I go in the quarterback room, which opens up the door to hire a second O-line coach. Josh is unselfish, he goes to the wide receiver room, which is his expertise. And now I've got 2 guys that can work with these 8 to 10 guys that are gonna play football for us and to expedite their growth. You know, the O-line, 5 guys play at a time. When you got 1 coach for 5 guys, it's hard to get the other guys going. And then you throw a third O-line guy in the mix, and now the young guys, those 10 freshmen I talked about that we brought in, they'll be developing. I think a couple of them may find themselves in the 2 deep, but the ones that don't, when they're down preparing our defense for their game, they're not just looking at a card and running it. They're actually being coached how to step with the right step, how to put the hand where it needs to be. So now we're expediting their growth. And again, I'm looking forward to reaping the benefits of what we've done there, and to be able to hire those guys helps, but it takes 2 to 3 years, and it's just going through some stuff, like getting knocked over, getting run through, and then learning how to battle.
Third row center, George.
Hey, Mike, George Gerber,
George,
Washington
what's
Times.
up, bro?
Good to see you.
G. Herbo.
Yes. You kind of touched on it with Gene, but from your perspective, coaching and being in that quarterback room, the biggest difference from having an incumbent already in the position to leading a room with guys who were all kind of fighting it out for the battle.
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment, because it seems like whenever I was here, I don't know if you guys remember that one year we lost 5 quarterbacks, and I had a scout team linebacker start 10 games. Sean Petty. He sent me a text. Sean, what's up? He sent me a text. Come on by. But my point is that I'm used to that, and I actually like it, because again, like, you know, it'd be nice to walk in and have Leah there for 4 years, but I knew at some point that was going to end, and that's why we develop and play the players the way we do. When we had a chance to get Lee out of the game, we got him out of the game. It gave Billy game reps. When we had a chance to play a couple of quarterbacks in the bowl game, I didn't focus on just, hey, you win the game. I focused on how do I start my evaluation process. And I was really pleased the way the 2 young guys, well, not inexperienced guys, Billy and Cam, played against Auburn. But I've been even more excited just seeing like Christian Martin be able to come in June and pick things up like that. I've been really excited. Champ Long has probably some of the best skill set of all the quarterbacks, and just doesn't have the experience. So we practice a certain way that allows all these guys to get reps. So even if they're not the starter, they're still being developed. And I don't worry, because I do know the process of how we prepare and figure these out have been tested.
And on player-driven culture, I know a lot of guys, Leah and others, have either graduated or left. Ruben, of course, is still around, but specifically, maybe even on the offensive side, who are some of the guys you see stepping up now that some of the older guys have gone on and left?
You know, some of the new guys on the offensive side, like Josh Kaltenberger is a new guy that got here in January, but I mean, if there's one person that loves living in the DMV, I mean, this dude is downtown DC, museums, he's like, Josh is just like a kid in a candy store, but he's also, has shown the humility coming in to say, hey, man, I mean, the O-line right now has been the tightest knit group all summer. These dudes are cooking with each other, they're barbecuing. I've been trying to get a golf simulator in the player lounge, but I've been told no 100 times by Colleen, because, you know, they like sit around and hit golf balls and it's the new
Range of
way.
motion, yeah.
Yeah, but also just spend time together. Like, I'm just tell you, when it comes to spending time together, that's so important. That's what this team has done, and the leadership on the offensive side, guys like Lou Ball and Kyle Wong, who's now 3 years later, he's a guy that's in the mix as a competing for a starting position. Moving Isaac Bunyan from D-line over to O-line, and him at the guard position. So there's some leadership over there. Ty Felton is working really hard. Ty's not a guy that is a loud guy, but he's trying to come out of his shell. Roman Hemby, the guy that typically kind of leads himself. I see all these guys really going out of their comfort zone, because when you talk about you can't do the same thing and expect a different result, I'm starting to see on the offensive side some of these guys not be just internal leaders where they lead by how they do things, but they've taken the next step of being able to, you know, peer-to-peer pressure.
Hey, Coach, Jacob Steinberg with the Baltimore Sun. You talked earlier
What's
about.
up, Jacob? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man.
You talked earlier about player development, and I'm curious, with having 6 defensive backs drafted in the past 6 NFL drafts, 4 in the last 3 years, and a couple other guys in NFL camps right now. At that position, what are the biggest keys to player development, and what is your recollection about the competitive spirit in that room between those guys?
Well, I think the biggest thing is how you recruit to that room. When I talked about being comfortable and confident, again, comfortable isn't saying we've arrived. Comfortable is knowing who we are. And if you look, it's not by chance or happenstance that we've had the success of that room and how the NFL has valued or viewed the guys that have come through that room. And so I would say it starts in an evaluation and process, but then we've had some good DB coaches along the way here, man. Guys like, you know, Henry Baker and Corey Robinson and some of those guys, John Hope, that have been here. We have a system in place that no matter who's there, we have an evaluation system of what we're looking for. And I can tell you that we've got some really talented young ones. What's developed that culture there? I think it's the tradition of the room. I mean, when you've got big shoes to fill, I mean, first round draft pick like Deontay Banks, and you got to fill those shoes, like it puts a little bit added pressure on you to understand. And the fact that guys like Deontay have been back here, and Jacorian and some of those former players are able to come back and stay in touch and tell the story of, hey man, if you want to get here, this is how and what I did. And being able to do the things earlier in their career. And I think that's probably one of the biggest areas where we've got young players that come here with a pro mentality. Like, I know some of y'all get mad when they say, oh, college is about academics, not well, you know what? It's my job to make sure the academics are taken serious. Just like as a parent, it's your job to make sure your kids understand what's important. But I'm gonna let these guys be pros before they're pros, meaning how they recover. And the fact that we have the modalities and the resources to help us stay healthy, which is important. How they prepare for games, what type of work they gotta put in. Some of this stuff has been passed down, and that's what's happened in the quarterback room for these guys, but it's also happened in that DB room, like you alluded to.
Take our last one from Wayne.
Wayne is so dramatic when he asks a question. Y'all notice that? Come on, let's get it.
All right, you seemed really happy the other night. You seem to be extremely happy today. Comfortable is a good word for it.
I go to therapy now, Wayne. I'm just telling you, man, therapy, man.
But you've looked great. What's your journey to slimming down and looking so coach-like?
Well, I mean, I run 5 to 6 miles a day. I eat less than 500 calories. No, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've had a little help. Dr. Rooks, our team physician, has worked with me in creating a plan. But to go in the quarterback room, I'm back on the front line, and I need the energy. I need the. We talked about sacrifice. I sacrificed giving up, like saying I don't have time because all I wanted to do was ball. Well, I'm being a little selfish. I do therapy once a week. I get massages. I'm a complete makeover of who I am. Y'all ain't gonna piss me off. You ain't gonna see Angry Locks no more. Because you know what? What's the worst thing can happen? I fail publicly. I think I've done that a few times or two.
All right, thank you, Coach. We're gonna have Coach Gaddis.
Thank you very much.